Hello human beings, Power Gamer here, and join me as I take a look into the future to the year 20XX. Huh, well, I was expecting much worse. At least we don't have giant robots running everywhere. I don't know why I'm disappointed.
Mega Man. When a man gets even better. Also known as the Blue Bomber, Mega Man is one of the most iconic characters in all of video games. But where did he come from? Mega Man was created and designed by Akira Kitamura and Keiji Inafune. He actually had a few different prototype names, including Mighty Kid, Knuckle Kid, and Rainbow Battle Kid, but eventually they settled on Rockman. Yeah, Rockman, since his real name was Rock and he had a sister named Roll. Get it? Rock and Roll? This won't be the only time in the series where the characters' names are music puns. The game was made by Capcom, who at the time was known for making arcade games like Street Fighter. The development team consisted of only 6 people, and apparently they had to work extremely hard to complete the game since the project's supervisor sought perfection, with the game's art style taking heavy inspiration from Japanese anime, and the gameplay being inspired by the classic game of rock, paper, scissors. The game was finally released in Japan on December 17th, 1987, with it later being released in North America on December 29th, 1987, and it wasn't released in Europe until December 13th, 1989. When the game was released internationally, the title was also changed from Rockman to Mega Man since Joe Morici, or Morici, I don't know how that's pronounced, the president of Capcom Consumer Products Division, thought Rockman was a terrible title. The game received a decent amount of praise from critics, but it sold very poorly, especially in North America. And you wanna know why? Every time I see this box art, I can't help but laugh. It's terrible. And you want to know why it was so bad? Apparently, the president of Capcom USA told the marketing representative the cover had to be done in a day. So the representative had a friend draw it in 6 hours. 6 hours. For this. There were probably other factors as to why the game didn't sell well, but Inafune blamed this cover art, and yeah, it's not very hard to see why.
But they always say don't judge a book by its cover, so today I'm going to play through the first Mega Man game to see if the bad sales were warranted. And since this year is the series' 25th anniversary, I swear this is unintentional. I think it's fitting. Now, sadly, this game's poor sales have made it somewhat pricey, so instead of tracking down a physical copy, I'm just going to play the Legacy Collection for the Switch.
Now, the story of the game is actually a bit different depending on the version. In the year 20XX, robots have been developed to help humanity. 2 scientists named Dr. Light and Dr. Wily developed 6 robot masters, as well as 2 other robots designed as siblings to each other named Rock and Roll. Dr. Light ends up taking full credit for their creations, causing Dr. Wily to go insane and reprogram the robot masters to help him take over the world. I think a simple lawsuit would be a better way of receiving credit for your work, but whatever. Because of this, Rock decides to be upgraded into a powerful combat robot known as Mega Man. He then sets out to defeat the robot masters and stop Dr. Wily. Now, this is the Western version of the game's story. In the original Japanese version, Dr. Light made all the robots on his own, and Dr. Wily is his old rival who stole the robots just because. I don't know why they decided to change it, but the game itself doesn't really tell you anything about the plot, so I guess it doesn't matter. As you start the game, you're free to select any Robot Master stage you want. Pretty impressive for a game released in 1987. And that's not the only impressive thing about it. The graphics are also really high quality for an NES game. There's a lot of great character animations and small details that weren't really done in games at the time, and this soundtrack is amazing. Every song is awesome, and it makes the game so much more enjoyable. Sadly though, the incredibly detailed graphics come at a price. Slow down. There are many moments in this game where everything just slows to a crawl, and it can be really frustrating. Now let's get to the actual gameplay. Mega Man is all about 2 things, jumping and shooting. Enemies come from all over the place, and you need to kill them. And when I say all over the place, I mean all over the place. In front of you, behind you, above you, below you, everywhere. This is a bit of a problem because Mega Man can only shoot in one direction. Yeah, you thought Samus was limited? Mega Man can only shoot directly in front of him. So if an enemy is too low to hit, good luck trying to shoot it. But thankfully, Mega Man's arm blaster isn't the only way he can defend himself. At the end of every level, you have to fight one of the 6 robot masters: Cut Man, Guts Man, Ice Man, Bomb Man, Fireman, and Elect Man. And if you defeat them, you can then use their weapon. You fought a guy throwing bombs at you, now you can throw those bombs. Think it's cool this guy can shoot fire? Now you can too. This is an awesome gameplay mechanic. I love being able to use enemies' powers in video games, and this is so much fun. And remember how I said the game was based around rock, paper, scissors? Every Robot Master is weak to another Robot Master's weapon, so a lot of the fun of Mega Man is figuring out the optimal route to fight the Robot Masters in. The best way to do that is to find a Robot Master you can easily defeat with your Arm Blaster, and then work your way around using the other robot's weaknesses. This also adds a lot of replay value since you can try new routes to make the game easier or harder, and try to figure out who's weak to what weapon. Or you can be like me and just look up the weaknesses online.
What? I've got stuff to do. I don't have time to figure this out on my own.
And knowing all the Robot Master's weaknesses does not make the game easy. This is often considered one of the hardest games on the NES, and yeah, I can understand why. The levels are filled with a bunch of instant death traps and enemies from every direction. On top of that, there's a decent amount of knockback, and many moments where the game throws disappearing blocks at you. You need to watch the pattern and get the timing down perfectly. And in all honesty, one of the reasons this game is so hard is because of the controls. They are not very good. I already mentioned how you can only shoot in one direction, but that's not the worst of it. Mega Man must have greased up his boots or something because he tends to slide around a bit, and it can lead to some unfair deaths. On top of that, the gravity is weirdly high. When you're jumping, it's not that bad, but if you just fall down, you plummet like a bowling ball in a lake. Look at how fast this is. Imagine something like that in real life. This game loves throwing instant death obstacles at you, and it's not fun, it's just frustrating. And even worse, this game has lives! If you run out, you have to start the entire stage all over again, and your lives aren't replenished when you go to the next level. I have no idea why.
But I am playing this on the Legacy Collection, so that means I can just use save points to get around the whole extra lives thing, and I do not feel bad about doing it because I'm not skipping anything, I'm just making it so I don't have to replay stuff I've already beaten. There's also the rewind button, which could be considered cheating, but I only really use that for moments like this. That stuff is not fair.
Even with all those things, this game can be a huge pain. I can't imagine playing this on an original NES, since you couldn't even save your game. You had to beat it in one sitting. There are so many enemies that are just ridiculous. This guy is the worst one in the game. I have no idea how I'm supposed to get past this. And even worse, your special weapons have limited energy, which isn't replenished after you die. So if a certain weapon is mandatory, you're screwed. And the only way to get more energy, or health for that matter, is by finding limited items or by getting some from defeated enemies, which is completely random. I guess I'll just talk about the actual levels now. The first one I played was Cutman. Aside from a few annoying enemies, his level isn't that bad. And Cutman himself is also pretty easy. His cutter isn't too hard to avoid, and you can knock him back if you hit him with your arm blaster. He's also weak to Gutsman's weapon. Next is Elecman. His level has these annoying lightning gates and whatever the hell these stupid things are. Oh, and you see this thing? Remember that. As for Elecman himself, he shoots lightning bolts at you and is weak to Cutman's weapon. Iceman. This level stinks. I already talked about how slippery the controls are, so imagine adding ice physics onto that. It sucks. Iceman shoots these ice chunks that do way more damage than they should, and he's weak to Elecman's weapon. Fireman's level has a bunch of fireballs and pillars that can be a bit of a pain. His boss fight sucks. How the hell am I supposed to avoid this? He's weak to Iceman's weapon, but that doesn't help much. Screw you, Fireman. Next time I'm in a burning building, I will not call the firemen solely because of you. Wait a minute. Moving on to Bomb Man. The level has these guys that have shields, and that's about it. The fight itself is pretty easy with Fireman's weapon. Finally is Gutsman. The level opens up with this section and... yeah, you get the idea. After that, the level's really simple. He's weak to Bomb Man's weapon, and that doesn't make it much easier because Bomb Man's weapon sucks. I guess I should go more into the special weapons. The Rolling Cutter is alright as a boomerang, but it has a pretty short range. The Thunder Beam is easily the best weapon in the game, since it does tons of damage and is the only way to hit enemies above and below you. The Ice Slasher can stun enemies, but not much else. The Firestorm is fast and gives you a little shield, which is really useful. The Hyper Bomb, as I said before, sucks since it takes forever for the bombs to detonate, and the Super Arm lets you pick up these blocks, making it way too situational. Well, that's the last Robot Master. Now it's time to take it straight to Wily himself. There's a few levels leading up to him. The Wily stages are pretty cool since they take full advantage of the fact that you have all the weapons, so they actually incorporate them into the level design, like having to throw away blocks or freezing pillars of fire. We also get this lovely image of him bobbing his eyebrows. It's all fine and dandy until we reach this part. Remember that thing back in Elecman stage? The one you need the super arm to get? The one that looked like it was completely optional? That was actually an extra power-up that lets you make these tiny platforms. Why am I just bringing it up now? Because it is mandatory to get through this level, and the game says nothing about it. Don't you just love it when that happens? So once you make it through and reach the end of the first stage, you have to fight a new boss.
The Yellow Devil.
Hands down, the most infamous boss fight in Mega Man history, and one of the most infamous boss fights in all of video games. What makes him so difficult? He literally comes flying in from out of nowhere and repeatedly disassembles himself and shoots his body across the screen. You can only hit him for a brief moment in this tiny spot when he's fully assembled and shoots a beam at you. His weakness is the Thunder Beam, and he loses the same amount of health when hit with that as you do when you get hit by him, so you have to hit him 7 times before he hits you 7 times. Not only is his disassembly attack really fast and hard to avoid, but the pattern is completely sporadic. You need to memorize this pattern or else you're completely screwed. This fight is so hard that most people use an exploit where if you shoot him with the Thunder Beam and then spam the pause button, he takes repeated damage and dies almost instantly.
And to any of you who say I'm not good enough to beat this game because I've been using save states and the rewind button, watch this. How's that for you?
So after that, we hop into the second Wily level, and after jumping across all these pits, you fight Cutman. Didn't I already beat you? Yep, turns out Wily also built clones of the Robot Masters, and you have to fight them all over again. After Cutman, you fight Electman, and then you fight a clone of Mega Man that always uses the same weapon you do. The best way to get through this is to just brute force it. Next level, you go down a super long water tube and fight this thing. You have to destroy 7 of these machines, and using the super arm kills them instantly, but then you can't jump over them, so it's best to save the blocks for the last 4. Only 1 stage left. Make your way through and grab this power-up that fully restores all your health and weapon energy and is only seen here. You then get a gauntlet of fighting Bomb Man, Iceman, Fireman, and Gutsman. You have to fight them all in a row with no checkpoints or health restoration. Fireman alone makes this a nightmare, and the others certainly don't help. All that's left is Dr. Wily. And again, you get no health, and if you get a game over, you have to start the whole level all over again. This is why I have no shame using save points. His first form shoots these orbs at you and is weak to the Firestorm, and his second form shoots bigger orbs at you, and I think it's weak to the Thunder Beam, but I'm not certain. Either way, once the machine is destroyed, Wily begs for forgiveness, I guess, and Mega Man just runs off, leaving him behind. I'm sure that won't lead to any problems in the future, but whatever, the day is saved.
Now, since this game is part of a collection, I can't absorb the whole thing, just the one game I've played so far, so that means I have to do this. Is a bit rough. The controls aren't very good, the level design can be frustrating, and like with a lot of other long-running video game series, it took a while to really find its footing. There's not too much of a reason to play it nowadays unless you're curious. You're probably better off playing most of the other games in the Mega Man series. If you are curious though, pick up the Legacy Collection and give it a shot. You'll probably have a good time. You'll certainly have a better time than that internet date I went on last week.
You look a little different from your picture.